The following account was found in encrypted files after a medical student vanished. Her professors died from rapid aging overnight. The laboratory remains operational. Medical boards claim this is fiction. The missing students suggest otherwise. In sub-basements that don't officially exist, the cutting never stops. Trust no one in a white coat.
The study group. We dissected something that was still alive today. Not alive in the way a heart keeps beating after brain death, or how cells continue to function for hours after clinical death. Alive as in it looked at us, tried to speak, and begged us to stop cutting. I'm Emma Watson, yes, like the actress. And no, it's not funny anymore. Final year medical student at King's College London. I need to tell someone what's happening in the anatomy lab before they make us all disappear like the others. Everyone always says I look younger than my 24 years. Blonde hair pulled back in a perpetual ponytail, wire-rimmed glasses that slide down my nose when I'm nervous, and hands that shake slightly when I'm stressed, which is constantly. I've always been the type who asks too many questions, who notices details others miss, who can't let sleeping dogs lie. My flatmates call me obsessive. My tutors call me dedicated. My therapist calls me hypervigilant due to childhood trauma, but I prefer to think I'm just naturally suspicious. When you grow up with a father who hides bruises behind closed doors and a mother who explains them away with increasingly creative lies, you learn to see through facades. I became a doctor to save people. Instead, I discovered that some people don't want to be saved. They want to create more victims. The first sign something was wrong came during advanced surgical techniques, our most exclusive module. Only 12 students selected based on grades, dedication, and what Professor Hartwell called stomach for the necessary work. We thought it was an honor. We were idiots. The first sign something was wrong came during orientation. Professor Hartwell led us down to sub-basement 3, a level I'd never heard of in 4 years at King's. The lift required a special key card and went down much further than any normal basement should. Professor Hartwell was a man who belonged in Victorian medical illustrations. Tall, gaunt, with surgical scars running up both arms like he'd been practicing on himself. His gray hair was slicked back with something that smelled like formaldehyde, and his fingers were stained yellow from years of handling preserved specimens. But it was his eyes that truly unsettled me. They were the color of old ice, and when he looked at you, you felt like a specimen being evaluated for dissection. He had the unsettling habit of touching people when he spoke, a hand on the shoulder, fingers brushing an arm, as if he was assessing the quality of their flesh. When he smiled, which he did often, his teeth were stained the color of old blood. And sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, I'd catch him moving his fingers in small cutting motions, as if he was perpetually performing surgery in his mind. This is where we keep our most valuable teaching materials, Hartwell explained, as we walked through corridors lined with specimen jars, his voice carrying the enthusiasm of someone showing off a beloved collection. Subjects too precious for general study. The specimens were extraordinary. Organs that showed diseases I'd only read about in textbooks, anatomical anomalies so rare they shouldn't exist. But what caught my attention were the eyes in some of the jars. They tracked our movement as we passed. "Professor," I said, "those retinas are remarkably well preserved. What's your preservation technique?" He smiled, and I noticed his teeth were stained the color of formaldehyde. "Oh, we don't preserve these specimens, Miss Watson. We keep them fresh." The dissection lab was massive, with 12 surgical tables arranged in a circle. Each table had leather restraints built into the sides, unusual for cadaver work, but Hartwell explained they were for stability during complex procedures. Our first subject was wheeled in under a sheet. When Hartwell pulled it back, I nearly vomited. It was a man, maybe 40, with his chest already opened and organs exposed, but his eyes were open, alert, and absolutely terrified. "This is patient 23B, Hartwell announced. Chronic heart failure, multiple organ dysfunction, perfect for studying disease progression." "Professor," said James, another student, "he appears to be conscious." "Consciousness is relative in medical education," Hartwell replied calmly. 23B has been with us for several years. He's become quite adapted to his role. The man on the table was trying to speak, but his vocal cords had been severed. His mouth moved frantically, eyes pleading with us to help him. "Begin your examination," Hartwell instructed. "Note the progression of cardiac tissue degradation." None of us moved. We stood there staring at this living, breathing, aware human being strapped to a dissection table. "Is there a problem?" Hartwell asked. "He's alive," I said. "We can't dissect a living person." "Miss Watson, you're here to learn medicine, not practice ethics. Medicine requires understanding how the human body fails. What better way to study organ dysfunction than to observe it in real time?" That's when I noticed the other tables weren't empty. There were people on all of them, covered by sheets, all conscious, all trying to communicate through severed vocal cords or damaged airways. "How long have they been here?" I whispered. "Various durations," Hartwell said, consulting a clipboard. "Our longest resident has been with us since 1987. Remarkable specimen. We've been able to study the long-term effects of multiple diseases simultaneously." One of the sheets moved, and I saw a woman underneath, maybe in her 20s with surgical scars covering her entire torso. Her eyes met mine, and I could see intelligence there, personality, humanity. She'd been conscious while they'd performed God knows how many procedures on her. "This is insane," James said. "This is torture." "This is education," Hartwell corrected. "Do you think the great medical advances came from textbooks? Vesalius, Harvey, Hunter, they all learned from living subjects. We're simply continuing that tradition." That's when the other professors entered. 6 of them, all wearing surgical scrubs, all carrying medical instruments. I recognized some of them from lectures. Dr. Pemberton from pathology, Dr. Morrison from pharmacology, Dr. Chen from neurology. "Students," Dr. Chen announced, "you've been selected not just for your academic performance, but for your psychological profiles. You all share certain traits that make you suitable for our advanced program." "What traits?" I asked. "Curiosity that overrides empathy, academic ambition that suppresses moral concerns, the ability to rationalize necessary cruelty." She smiled. "Don't look so shocked. You all chose medicine knowing it would require you to cut into human beings. We're simply extending that logic." Dr. Morrison stepped forward with a syringe. "This will help with the transition. A mild sedative combined with compounds that suppress certain neural pathways related to ethical reasoning." "You're going to drug us?" "We're going to help you become better doctors," Hartwell said. "Free from the limitations of squeamishness and outdated moral constraints." That's when I realized the truth. The students who'd been selected for advanced surgical techniques in previous years, they were still here. I could see them now, standing along the walls in surgical scrubs, their eyes vacant, mechanically preparing instruments. They'd been turned into assistants, their personalities surgically removed, leaving only medical knowledge and the ability to follow orders. "The process is quite elegant," Dr. Chin explained, following my gaze. "We preserve all medical knowledge while removing inconvenient emotions like guilt, disgust, or compassion. Previous students have become excellent research assistants." "What about the living subjects?" James asked. "Where do they come from?" "Failed students mostly," Dr. Pemberton said. "Those who couldn't adapt to our methods. Rather than waste their potential, we repurpose them as teaching materials. Some are volunteers who answered advertisements for medical research. Others are simply people who won't be missed. The woman on the nearby table was shaking her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. I could see a medical student ID badge partially visible beneath her surgical scars. Someone who'd been in my position years ago. "You have a choice," Hartwell said. "Submit to the treatment and join our research team, or become research subjects yourselves. Either way, you'll contribute to medical advancement." That's when the fire alarm went off. I'd pulled it while the professors were distracted with their speeches. In the confusion, I managed to grab a scalpel and cut the restraints on patient 23B and the woman next to him. "Run," I whispered to them. "Find help." But they couldn't run. Their legs had been surgically altered, tendons severed to prevent escape. They could only lie there, conscious and aware, as the professors calmly reset the alarm and secured the lab. "Miss Watson," Hartwell said, "that was unproductive. Security is controlled by our department. There will be no rescue." The other students were looking at me with expressions of betrayal, as if I'd ruined something wonderful for them. The psychological profiling had been accurate. They were already adapting to the situation, beginning to see it as a learning opportunity rather than a horror. "However," Hartwell continued, "your reaction has provided valuable data about the selection process. We'll need to refine our psychological screening." Dr. Chen approached with the syringe again. "Don't worry, Miss Watson. The transition is relatively painless. You'll retain all your medical knowledge while losing these troublesome emotional responses." I tried to run, but the lobotomized student assistants blocked the exits. They moved with mechanical precision, their faces showing no recognition of what they were doing. That's when I noticed something they'd missed. My phone was still recording. I'd started a voice memo when we first entered the lab, thinking I might want to review the advanced techniques we'd learned. I managed to send the file to my cloud storage just as Dr. Chen grabbed my arm. The injection burned as it entered my bloodstream. Almost immediately, I felt my emotional responses beginning to dull. The horror of the situation became intellectually interesting rather than viscerally appalling. But there was something the professors hadn't anticipated. I'd been taking antidepressants for anxiety, and the combination with their neural suppressants created an unexpected reaction. Instead of removing my emotions entirely, it created a dissociative state where I could observe everything while maintaining my moral reasoning. I've been pretending to be successfully converted for 3 weeks now. I attend the dissections, take notes on the living subjects, even assist with procedures. But inside, I'm still me, still horrified, still planning. The living subjects aren't just failed students and volunteers. I've recognized faces from missing person reports, people who disappeared from London over the past decade. The professors have connections throughout the medical system, and they've been harvesting subjects systematically. There are dozens of them in the sub-basements, all conscious, all aware, being used for different types of research. Some have been infected with diseases to study progression. Others have had organs removed and replaced to test surgical techniques. The longest-term residents have been subjected to experiments that would make Mengele weep. But I've found their weakness. The professors aren't immortal. They're sustained by regular injections of compounds derived from the spinal fluid of their living subjects. Without those injections, they age rapidly and die within hours. Tonight, I'm going to replace their medical supplies with saline solution. When they inject themselves tomorrow morning, the aging process will begin immediately. I've also been documenting everything: patient locations, professor schedules, security protocols. I've hidden copies of this information throughout the hospital, and I've programmed my phone to automatically send everything to journalists and police if I don't check in every 24 hours. The hardest part will be the subjects. Many of them have been here so long, sustained by machines and surgical interventions, that they can't survive outside the lab. I'll have to choose who to save and who to mercy kill, but at least they'll be free. If you're reading this, It means either my plan worked and the truth is finally coming out, or the professors discovered my deception and I'm now strapped to one of those tables myself. Either way, remember this. The next time you're offered an exclusive educational opportunity, ask yourself why you were really selected. Sometimes the most prestigious programs come with the highest cost, and if you ever find yourself at King's College London, avoid sub-basement 3. Some knowledge isn't worth learning. Editor's note: following publication of this account, police raided King's College London. Sub-basement 3 was found to contain extensive medical facilities, but no evidence of the described activities. All mentioned professors were found dead in their offices from apparent rapid aging. Emma Watson remains missing, though her medical student ID was discovered in the hospital's incinerator.